Good afternoon. I'm here with my guest, Beth Castrodale, and welcome to poet, writer, Beth.
Thanks for having
And actually, I was introduced to Beth by Gilmore Tamney, a fine writer and who I've interviewed before here, a multi-talented person. So Beth Castrodale started out as a news reporter, and she was in academic publishing for a number of years. And she has 3 novels to her credit, the latest being Marion Hartley, winner of the Nelson Prize for first book, a novel. She's been in publications such as The Printer's Devil,
Printer's Devil Review. Mm-hmm.
Printer's Devil Review, and The Writing Disorder, among other publications. So in this Depression-era novel, Marion Hartley, Marion sewing becomes a metaphor for the corseting or repression of women. Could you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, definitely. One of the central concerns of the novel is Marion's desire to create a really, truly comfortable corset. And one of the reasons for that is that she and other women at the time were very familiar with just the discomfort of that stricture, that very restricting garment. And as you said, it represented not only a daily trial of their jobs, but sort of it represented a lot of the other strictures that they faced in terms of their work, how they could or could not express their sexuality, just all kinds of things. And one of Marion's central missions is to try to create a really, truly comfortable corset, which it takes on not just the physical dimensions of that, but also sort of the social aspects of that as well. So.
Okay, we don't use corsets anymore, I don't think, do we?
I guess there are sort of some people. There actually is. It's funny. There's some people. They still design corsets, and in some fashion circles, people are still making them for, if you can believe it, for part of the undergarment wardrobe and also kind of the dress wardrobe.
Yeah, but not like
too.
The whalebone thing.
Oh no, I don't think so. Maybe there's a subculture of that.
But it was a striking image when you see this woman who Marion's an observer of people, and she's sort of corseted because you could see the woman, she couldn't move. Either way, just looking ahead, no book, no nothing, is sort of like the plight of women, especially more so in the Depression era.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you use the train as the beginning scene, and why did you use a train? I think trains are always great settings because you're between here and there. It's limbo. You start thinking. But tell me your thoughts on using the train as. More than she's leaving a sort of scandal-ridden background in Pittsburgh out to the hinterlands.
Exactly.
Yeah. But more than that, you must have thought the train might be a good scene.
You kind of touched on it in a way. Like I think it is like sort of Marion's traveling, and it's part of her journey. And she's traveling from one place, but also I think one state of mind to another. She's trying to sort of escape. She's as the novel starts off, she's been kicked out of her job as a seamstress at a shop because she's been discovered to have had an affair with someone who turns out to be the relative of a customer, and so she's sort of fleeing somewhere, and the train is sort of an avenue of escape for that. But also, I think there's a sense of, in that scene I think you're referring to, a sense of travel when we encounter people in our travels, and she encounters this woman who looks very uncomfortable, and Marion is wondering if it connects to her corset. I think it's sort of that moment of sort of when we encounter people that in travels are strangers, but we also try to connect with them through what they might be going through, or just sort of what their experiences might be. So yeah, but in the train, she actually leaves on the train at the end, and I have that scene too. So I think the train is sort of maybe sort of a bookending sort of thing as well. So
now, what is the spark of the idea, the germ of the idea? How did this come to you? Are you a sewing background? Or,
I'm a very amateur sewer, but a big source of the novel was my maternal grandmother wore corsets, and she also worked on a farm. And I just remember thinking, gosh, wearing a corset by hot summer days out in the fields, and cooking in a hot kitchen. And I remember my mother drew it. I wish I would have kept the picture. My mother drew a picture of this, and I just thought, what a garment of torture. And so I thought, just seeing through Marion's point of view, what if I thought of if a seamstress could work her magic to sort of make this.
Yeah, it always
thing,
seems a woman to put in like the binding of feet in Chinese tradition and things of that nature,
Yes.
just to sort of fit into this mold.
Yes.
But I was going to ask you, Paula Bourne?
Bohmer?
Yeah. Now she wrote that it was a woman sinning against a woman sinning and a society sinning against women. This is sort of germane to what's going on now, don't you think, in a way?
I sadly think it's true. I mean, I feel like in a way, in the case of Marion, and I think certainly what's happening now, that I think a lot of judgment is passed on women, not only for, what their perceived actions are in terms of their clothing or, some of the, their sexuality and all those different things. So I think very sadly that issue is still very much with us.
Yeah. Did you have that issue in mind when you were starting this thing out?
It's funny. It didn't really. It really didn't. Maybe at the very beginning, but as I wrote, it was sort of an inevitable part of. I think anytime you're dealing with a woman like Marion, who is really being judged in certain ways for her behavior and trying to work through that and push back against that, I think inevitably all those questions came. And it's funny you said that. When I was revising the book and, months since then, I thought, yeah, it's really sadly this stuff is still very much with us, so.
Okay. Did you do a lot of research into the era? I know there's been comments on the detail in your book and how, detail is very important, as we know, for any kind of writing. Did you do a lot of research into the Depression era?
It's fun. I did do, sort of one of my primary sources was my mother, just sort of, sharing her stories and, the stories about the corset. And then in terms of other details about the corset, there are some great books out there. Valerie Steele, her book, The Corset, is a fabulous resource. There's a lot of great information out there. In terms of the Depression, I did, again, both of my parents were children of the Depression, so I had information from them. And then another, in terms of the storyline, there's also a veteran of World War I who is featured in the story, and he and Marion form a relationship. And there's just some incredible, the Library of Congress has incredible archives about diaries and journals of veterans of World War I, so I immersed myself in those.
Did you do that online, or you actually visited?
It's all their archives. A lot of them are online, so they have just a great resource. And actually, you can look at the pages are as they're typed, as they're written. It's just incredible, and just incredible accounts there of their stories. But so I was able to do a lot of research, and I tried not to. You might have had this issue too, or sometimes you go down the research rabbit hole and you don't know where to come out. So I tried to not, go too far astray, but I did enjoy the research a great deal.
Why did you choose the Depression era? Because of your grandmother?
It is, and actually Marion is my grandmother's age, and would have been my grandmother's age, and it was just sort of the time that that another time of struggle that I had heard first-hand accounts of, and although I was that was a good, long before me, I definitely felt very connected to those stories.
I'm wondering if your grandmother felt oppressed by the corset. It was her living, right, to make them. But what did she feel about them?
It's funny. She never made them. She wore them. But she, I sort of asked my mother about that, about like why would you wear a corset? And she said it was just the thing of the time, that it was sort of almost. I hope I'm describing this correctly, but it was sort of a thing of manners almost, that you wore that, and even when you were working, these hard jobs, hard labor, and so I think that I wish I could have talked to my grandmother about that directly. I just remember my mother sort of being, and also me being in awe that someone would go through that every day. So
okay. Now, you were a journalist. I've been a community journalist for a long time, but tell me about, because a lot of writers, I remember, tell me, and from Hemingway was a journalist, and a lot of writers I've interviewed said they were journalists. I remember having, I can't remember her name, but she runs the Iowa workshop now, and she started out as a journalist. So I mean, where did you write, and how do you think the work of a journalist prepared you for writing novels?
I started out, I had different internships. When I was in college, I worked for...
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Ohio State,
Okay.
Ohio State University. So I worked at the Toledo Blade and the Cincinnati Enquirer, and as internships. And then when I got out of college, I went to the Cape Cod Times. So that's how I wound up in Massachusetts.
And how was that experience?
It was good. It was a positive experience. It's funny, I think that I'm such an introvert that I found that it really just butted heads with my, the job that to be a good reporter and to be able to really press people with questions and keep at it. And, I just didn't have that, it really sort of ran against my nature, but I do feel like it was
Some people are very shy, but within that context, I mean, reporter or, and subject, they're good with those demarcations, right?
Yeah, some people definitely have that gift to do that, and I don't think I did. I felt like I was really having to just really, push myself out there to do that. But that said, I really felt like it was a great way of sort of connecting and meeting people, asking questions of people that I wouldn't ordinarily encounter necessarily, and so I mean, I think it was and also for research, learning how to ask, kind of. Researching stories helped me, with my own the research that I have to do with my fiction. So it was, and I worked with great people too. So
how long did you do that?
I was at the Cape Cod Times just a couple of years probably. So it was, I don't have years of journalism experience, but I felt like it was definitely a benefit to my fiction writing for sure.
And you worked for Macmillan, did you say?
Yeah, I was at Bedford St. Martin's, which is part of Macmillan. So, right. And I was there and back a couple times. So it was probably at least like 15 years all told. So. Where's
that? New York or is it around here?
They have offices in New York and Boston. Okay. So, but I was in their Boston.
So
office.
How was why'd you leave it? I mean, I know you wanted to write a book, but I mean, other than that, were there any reasons you left academic publishing?
Mostly it was to spend more time on fiction writing, and I've done some freelancing and so forth in there. But I'm very lucky I don't have an office job, 9 to 5, I'm just so incredibly lucky. So I really just sort of wanted to devote more time to my own writing. And
so are you disciplined about it now? I mean, this is your job now, right? So
yeah, I really try to be. I mean, I find that my best time is early in the morning to probably getting around like 2, 3 in the afternoon. I start to fade, so I try to give my best hours in the early part of the day, and then but I'm doing book reviewing too, which I really enjoy.
And I know I love writing in cafes and all that, doing a lot of work in cafe. Are you a sort of cafe person or no?
I do that sometimes. I don't know if you ever have this experience where sometimes I'm more productive writing longhand, because sometimes if you're in front of the computer,
I find there's too many distractions. A cat jumps on you and all this stuff,
Yeah, exactly. So. That can happen. So I think it's good to break things up. And I don't go to cafes all the time, but it's a good break to kind of.
And you've lived on Jamaica Plain. It's sort of like Somerville. It's very creative, a lot of artists. So how's that experience living? How long have you lived in Jamaica Plain?
We moved there in '99, so. Gosh, we're
coming up
on 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Changed a lot.
There was a place I used to have drinks at Triple
D's.
Is that still there?
That's now Canary Square. I don't know. Yeah, it's so
I like
different
Triple
now.
D's. What is it real?
Yeah, it's so different. Have you gone in there since, or into the new space?
No, I passed through there. I went to the poetry reading at the old firehouse thing there.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that still there?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But Triple D's is long gone, and if you, it's like a gut rehab kind of thing where you wouldn't recognize it if you went back.
And so do you miss that atmosphere? What do you think?
I miss it, but I'm also grateful. There's just like there's so many other great spots too. Like the Brendan B Inn is still there, which is great.
And the community itself is very creative.
Oh yeah, definitely, and also just all of the green space with the pond and the arboretum, and it's just so, it's just inspiring to be able to just be outside and enjoy that.
And I remember 20 years ago, I had a friend who lived on street that's right near Triple D's, and if you walk down to Stony Brook and you took the wrong turn, you'd worry about,
Yeah.
But now it's much better, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But anyway, so let's, you got about 12 minutes to read from your work, whatever. Anyway, and this can be, this is published by?
This is Garland Press.
Garland Press out in Shrewsbury, right?
Exactly, yep.
And it can be purchased on Amazon or preferably through the press, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if it's possible for people to buy it from Garland Press, garlandpress.com. And also, when the book first came out, it was at Porter Square Books. So I don't know if it's still there, but I bet you they could order it. And I'm so grateful to them for carrying the book and also allowing me and some other local authors to read there. So they've been really wonderful.
And your website for the audience is?
Oh, for the press?
No, for your website. For
Oh, for me, it's bethcastrodale.com. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let it rip.
All right. So just to set this up, it's 1931, and Marion Hatley, the main character, has just invented this revolutionary corset, and it's revolutionary because it's incredibly comfortable. And as this scene opens, she and her helpmate, Ina Lyle, are trying to pitch the corset to a small dress shop in a town called Cooper's Ford, which is just west of Pittsburgh, and this is the town where Marion is now living. Aside from its wares, Peacham's clothing for ladies differed little from the grocer's to its left and the hardware store to its right. Its merchandise racked or stacked along creaking aisles of worn wood under glaring yellowed light. There was no art about the place, unless you counted the old red velvet theater curtain draped before the fitting room, or the little sampler that hung on the wall next to the cash register. A stitch in time saves 9, and below this, the suggestion of a garden, pink X's on green stalks. Examining Peacham's clothing collection, Ina at her side, Marion presumed it met the needs of the ladies of Cooper's Ford. There were house dresses hanging like curtains, in the same immemorable prints and hues. There were occasion dresses of silk crepe, wool, and cotton, their nearly universal soberness relieved here and there by rosettes or pleats or satin collars. It seemed that hats and gloves were provided purely as an obligation, the hats treed in a shadowy corner as if to discourage investigation. As for those country ladies who sought more adventurous clothes or their makings, Marion supposed they drifted toward Pittsburgh. Ina touched Marion's arm and nodded toward the back right corner of the store. Before Marion knew it, Ina led her to a narrow set of shelves stacked with a modest extent of Peacham's underthings, stockings, garters, drawers, the older style front-lace corsets, and a few of the newer corselettes and girdles with their bands of surgical elastic. Next to these stood a dressmaker's form bound in some whalebone relic from the 90s, an attempt at whimsy, Marion guessed, or perhaps an occasion to give thanks for the progress represented by the newer models. Her eyes bugged, she was sure, when she saw a price tag dangling from this antique. "Hello, Ina." A 50-ish woman stood behind them at the end of the aisle. Though she'd addressed Ina, she was looking pointedly at Marion. "Loretta?" Ina nodded, then waved her hand toward Marion. "This is Marion Hatley, Mrs. Cook's niece. She's helping at the house and teaching at the school, finishing out the year for Mrs. Pfister." Marion extended her hand, and the woman took it limply. "Pleased to meet you." "I didn't know Mrs. Cook had a niece." Though she released Marion's hand, she still fixed her with that look. "Now why would you?" Ina cut in. "Marion, this is Loretta Rue. She runs this place." Marion cast about for something fitting to say. "It's lovely?" Completely insincere. "Congratulations?" Ridiculous, and undoubtedly belated. Finally, "It must be an awful lot of work, taking this all upon yourself." Loretta Rue shrugged. "I suppose, when there's customers." To Marion's mind, the appearance of the sales ladies on the floor, was a shop's best advertising or its undoing. Though the standards surely were more relaxed in small towns, Loretta Rue's indifference to her own appearance bordered on contempt. Over a sack dress, she wore a loose, pouching sweater, not unlike Marian's from school, and her stockings were laddered past mending. Her piled gray hair sat a tilt on her head, flattened along one side, from a pillow, Marian assumed. "What can I help you ladies with today?" Loretta asked. Ina's silence was Marian's cue to begin her pitch for the new corset, which she and Ina had worked out together. They'd also come up with a name for the corset, the Whisper Lift, the whisper part being Ina's invention. After being fitted for her own model, she said, "Well, it's doing its job, but I don't feel squeezed. That part of things is barely noticeable, like a whisper." By telephone, Marian had run the name and a pitch by her friend, Edie, who declared them superb and expressed a desire to use both at La Charmante Femme, the shop in Pittsburgh where Edie and formerly Marian worked. Based on the pitch, she and Marian devised custom advertisements for the Whisper Lift's debut in Pittsburgh and Cooper's Ford, and Marian had brought the Cooper's Ford version fresh from the printer with her today. Now Marian began hawking both the Pink Lady and the Whisper Lift to Loretta, taking each garment from her bag at the appropriate moment. She described the underthings, quote, "stunning success in Pittsburgh," and expressed confidence in their prospects in Cooper's Ford, even as she seriously doubted them. In Loretta's baffled stare, she foresaw the reactions of those ladies for whom life without the most restrictive corset might be as unthinkable as life without the rule and word of God. Still, there was always a chance that the Whisper Lift would sell here, even though its, quote, "stunning success in Pittsburgh" was something of a fib. It had become available only recently at La Charmante. The new corset was starting to take off, with enough orders to keep Marian and Ina plenty busy. And if there was any chance for the Whisper Lift to succeed anywhere, Marian wanted to take it, for the sake of her late mother Vera, another expert seamstress. The fewer women who suffered the bonds of their corsets, the happier Vera would have been. Marian proposed that they pay Loretta $15 up front to stock the 5 Pink Ladies in various sizes, as well as one model Whisper Lift. The model would be accompanied by Marian and Edie's advertisement, which Marian now handed to Loretta. Here's the advertisement. It says, "The Whisper Lift. You will forget you are wearing it and be unforgettable. Welcome to the Cooper's Ford debut of the Whisper Lift, a foundation garment unsurpassed and offering a feminine silhouette, whisper soft slimming, and a magical lift to the figure and spirits. Try the model here and be measured by our expert seamstress for a superior lasting fit, and comfort ensured by a breakthrough in shapewear, comfortably shaping Expand Ease fans. Inquire at the service counter for details and discover for yourself the secret of Pittsburgh's most discerning ladies. Comfort need not be sacrificed for confidence and beauty." Loretta handed back the advertisement and nodded to the Whisper Lift draped over Marian's arm. "Can I see that again?" she asked. She lifted it by the shoulder straps, as if it might bite, and turned it this way and that. "We can fit you for one," Marian offered. "I don't wear corsets," Loretta said. She gave the Whisper Lift a last once over and passed it back. "How much are you proposing to charge?" $8 for the Pink Ladies," Marian said. $12 for the Whisper Lifts. Loretta whistled heartily. "That's more than some dresses here, and I don't mean house dresses. We charge nearly twice that in Pittsburgh, and we can't keep enough in stock." Another slight fib. "This isn't Pittsburgh." Ina stood frozen, staring at some point beyond Loretta's foot. Marian had never encountered one who so equally mixed toughness with caution. "I mean you no disrespect, Loretta, if I may call you that." "You may." Marian continued. "I mean you no disrespect, but I see you're charging $10 for the corselettes." These were the Whisper Lift's closest rivals. Cheaper, no? She asked. Cheaper, yes. But trust me, once your customers take to the whisper lifts, that $2 extra will seem like nothing to them. Add $2 more even. Here, Marian was pushing it. And I bet they'll still choose the lifts once they've gotten accustomed to them. Even in these times, Loretta asked. Even in these times, Marian said. Loretta considered all this. What would I get? Marian said, I propose $2 for each pink lady sold, $3 for each whisper lift. Another long whistle. That's hardly worth the shelf space, Loretta said. In the end, they settled on Loretta getting $3 for each pink lady and $4 for each whisper lift, with Ina keeping the remaining profit. Whatever else might be said about Loretta's fitness to run a dress shop, she drove a good business deal. The terms decided, they shook hands limply all around in a sort of puzzled afterthought. After exchanging some small talk with Loretta, Ina led the way back outside, where she and Marian picked their way along the frozen sidewalk toward the corner restaurant. As they sat in silent satisfaction over cups of coffee, a question that had been tamped down under the press of business surfaced once again in Marian's mind. What does Loretta Rue wear, if not a corset? Ina set down her cup and regarded Marian sternly, but with a light of mischief in her eyes. Drawers and a bandage. No, Marian said. A smile shadowed Ina's face.
Nice. Well, closing minutes, but what would, if you, I'm going to speak to we're doing a short story in my class, so what would you say that, in your opinion, are the important elements of fiction? That's a big question.
That's a good question. You know, I'll just speak maybe from my own bias, but
that's what I'm asking for, your own bias.
Yeah. I think that just feeling. I just am interested in the characters. You know, I just feel like anything that's driven by the character and sort of curiosity. I just want to know who this person is and what makes them tick. And so I think just the internal lives of the characters is what.
Do you have a reading coming up?
You know, for this book, I'm pretty much wrapped up. But with I have another book coming out from Garland Press later this year. So I will definitely be scheduling some readings for that for sure. So.
Okay. And if I asked you who are your favorite current novelists now, what would you say?
You know, it's a big list. Actually, I have to say, you mentioned stories, and one of my favorite writers is Alice Munro, the story writer Alice Munro. Just think of the way that she kind of immerses her stories in the lives of women, and I could go on and on about that, but she's such an inspiration to me.
Thank you very much, Beth, for being on Poet to Poet,
Thank
Writer
you.
to Writer.